This video is made for entertainment purposes only. I've worked on oil rigs from Texas to the North Sea, from the Gulf of Mexico to the Arctic Circle. I've seen equipment failures that should have killed everyone on site. I've watched men lose fingers, limbs, and lives to the machinery we use to rip petroleum from the earth. But nothing prepared me for what I found on the Trans-Alaska Pipeline Expansion Project in the winter of 2006. My name is Connor Hayes. I'm a roughneck, a pipeline welder, a man who spent 23 years in the oil fields doing the brutal, dangerous work that keeps the world's engines running. And I'm the man who discovered that my employer, Arctis Energy Corporation, has been waging a secret war against an indigenous species for over 30 years. A war they're winning. A war that's built on corpses, cover-ups, and a level of corporate evil I didn't think was possible outside of movies. This is the story of what I found on Drilling Site 7. And why I can never go back to Alaska. January 2006. Northern Alaska, about 140 miles south of Prudhoe Bay. Temperatures hovering at -38 Fahrenheit before wind chill. The kind of cold that freezes diesel fuel in the lines and turns exposed skin black with frostbite in under 3 minutes. We were expanding a secondary pipeline route for Arctis Energy, a privately held corporation that owned drilling rights across hundreds of thousands of acres of Alaskan wilderness. The project was massive, well-funded, and completely off the public radar. That should have been my first warning sign. I'd been on site for 6 weeks, welding pipeline sections in conditions that would make most people quit after a day. 12-hour shifts, sometimes longer. Living in prefab housing units that rattled in the wind. Eating freeze-dried meals and drinking coffee that tasted like motor oil. But the pay was extraordinary. $3,800 a week, plus hazard bonuses. For a guy like me, divorced, no kids, nowhere else to be, it was perfect. The crew was small. 17 men total. Most of us were veterans of remote site work, the kind of guys who didn't ask too many questions and kept our heads down. The site supervisor was a hard-ass named Frank Deacon, ex-Army engineer with a face like weathered leather and zero tolerance for mistakes. This pipeline goes operational in 4 months, he'd tell us during the morning briefings. Arctis has invested $60 million into this expansion. We're behind schedule. So we work faster, we work smarter, and we don't screw up. The work was brutal but straightforward. Excavate. Lay pipe. Weld. Bury. Move to the next section. Repeat for miles and miles through frozen wilderness. We were on day 43 when the first strange thing happened. I was doing a routine inspection of Section 12, about 2 miles from the main camp, when I noticed the valve assembly was damaged. Not worn. Not corroded. Damaged. The locking bolts had been removed. The pressure gauge was smashed. And the emergency shutoff valve had been deliberately jammed open with what looked like a thick branch wedged into the mechanism. "Frank, we've got a problem," I radioed back to camp. He arrived 20 minutes later on a snowmobile, his face already set in a scowl. "What kind of problem?" I showed him the valve assembly. Frank stared at it for a long moment, his jaw working. Then he pulled out his radio. "This is Deacon. I need a full crew inspection of sections 10 through 15. Now." By nightfall, we'd found similar damage at 4 other locations. Valves tampered with. Pressure sensors destroyed. In one case, an entire section of newly laid pipe had been bent. Not broken, bent, at an angle that should have been impossible without heavy machinery. "Vandals," suggested Tommy Chen, one of the younger welders. "Environmental activists." Frank shook his head. "We're 140 miles from the nearest town. Nobody's hiking out here in winter to sabotage a pipeline. And look at this," he pointed to the bent pipe section. "This is 3/4-inch steel. You'd need a hydraulic press or an excavator to bend it like this. There's no equipment out here that could do it." "Then what did?" I asked. Frank's expression was unreadable. "I don't know. But corporate's going to want answers." That night, Frank made a satellite call to Arctis headquarters. I wasn't privy to the conversation, but I could see him through the window of the communications building, his posture tense, his gestures sharp. When he emerged, he gathered the crew. "Arctis is sending a security team," he announced. "They'll be here in 48 hours. Until then, we're implementing new protocols. Nobody works alone. Nobody goes more than a quarter-mile from camp without a radio check-in. And everyone carries this." He handed out flare guns. "Flares?" Tommy asked. "For what?" "In case you need help," Frank said shortly. "Questions?" We had plenty. But Frank's tone made it clear the conversation was over. The next night, I couldn't sleep. The wind was hammering the housing unit, and my mind kept circling back to that bent pipe. The sheer force required. The precision of the sabotage. At 0230 hours, I gave up on sleep, pulled on my thermal gear, and headed to the mess hall for coffee. That's when I heard it. A low, rhythmic sound. Metal on metal. Coming from the direction of Section 14. I grabbed my radio and a flashlight, stepping out into the bitter cold. The sound was clearer now, deliberate, purposeful. Someone was working on the pipeline. "This is Hayes," I radioed. "I've got activity at Section 14. Investigating." Static. Then Frank's voice, thick with sleep. "Negative. Hayes. Wait for backup." "It's probably just equipment settling in the cold," I said. "I'll take a quick look." I shouldn't have gone alone. But I was curious, and I was stupid, and I genuinely thought it was just thermal contraction making noise. I was wrong. Section 14 was about 400 yards from camp. As I approached, I could see movement in the darkness. Large, deliberate, illuminated by my flashlight beam. And then I saw it. A figure. Massive. Easily 8 feet tall, maybe more. Covered in dark fur that seemed to absorb the light. Broad shoulders. Long arms. It was crouched beside the pipeline, working on something with its hands. My first instinct was bear. Grizzly, maybe. But bears don't crouch like that. Don't use their hands with that kind of dexterity. I raised my flashlight, and the beam caught its face. Not a bear. Not human. Something else. The face was primate. Heavy brow, flat nose, deep-set eyes. But the eyes themselves were intelligent, focused, aware. It looked directly at me, and in that moment, I felt something I'd never experienced before. Recognition. Not of me specifically, but of what I represented. Human. Threat. Intruder. Jesus Christ, I breathed. The creature, I didn't have another word for it, stood slowly to its full height. It had to be 9 feet tall. Its hands were enormous, holding what looked like a section of valve assembly it had removed from the pipeline. We stared at each other. Then it did something that froze me in place. It held up the valve assembly and pointed at the ground beneath the pipeline. I followed its gesture. There, visible in the snow, was a dark stain spreading from beneath the pipe. Oil. A leak. Small, but growing. The creature pointed at the leak, then at the valve assembly, then made a gesture I understood instinctively. It was showing me the problem. It hadn't been sabotaging the pipeline. It had been trying to fix it. You're trying to stop the leak?" I said, my voice shaking. The creature tilted its head, studying me. Then it carefully placed the valve assembly on the ground and stepped back, hands visible, palms forward. A non-threatening gesture. Universal. My radio crackled. "Hayes, report. What's your status?" I fumbled for the radio, my hands numb. "Frank, you're not going to believe this, but..." A shot rang out. The creature jerked, a spray of dark blood appearing on its shoulder. It roared, a sound that vibrated in my chest, primal and full of pain. I spun around. Frank was running toward us, rifle raised. "Get down, Hayes." "No. Wait. It's not hostile." Another shot. This one missed as the creature turned and fled, moving with impossible speed despite its size, disappearing into the darkness of the forest. Frank reached me, breathing hard, scanning the trees with his rifle. "You hurt. What the hell did you just do?" I shouted. "It wasn't attacking me. It was fixing the leak. That thing was 10 feet from you." It was showing me the leak. It was trying to help. Frank grabbed my shoulder, his grip hard. Listen to me very carefully, Hayes. What you just saw, what we just saw, you don't talk about it. Not to the crew. Not to anyone. Understood. Frank, what the hell was that? His face was pale, his jaw set. Something that's not supposed to exist. Something Arctis has been dealing with for a long time. Dealing with? What does that mean? Frank keyed his radio. This is Deacon. We have a code black at Section 14. Repeat, code black. I need the response team now. He turned back to me. It means this just became a much bigger problem. And you're in the middle of it. The helicopter arrived at 0600 hours. Not a civilian transport. Not Arctis Company aircraft. A Bell 412 military-style helicopter with no identifying markings, painted matte black. 6 men disembarked. Not biologists. Not safety inspectors. Mercenaries. They wore tactical gear, body armor, helmets with night vision mounts, assault rifles that definitely weren't standard security equipment. Their leader was a man in his 40s with cold gray eyes and a scar running from his left ear to his jaw. He introduced himself as Mr. Voss. No rank. No company affiliation. Just Voss. Frank briefed him privately in the communications building while the rest of the team set up equipment. Motion sensors, trail cameras, what looked like acoustic monitoring gear. I approached one of the mercenaries, a younger guy checking his rifle. What kind of security team are you? He didn't look up. The kind that handles problems. What kind of problems? The kind you don't ask about. Voss emerged from the briefing and called me over. Mr. Hayes. I understand you had an encounter with one of the indigenous entities last night. Indigenous entities? I repeated. You mean they? I need you to show me exactly where the encounter occurred. Every detail. What it was doing, how it moved, how it responded to you. We walked to Section 14. In the daylight, I could see things I'd missed in the darkness. Massive footprints in the snow, at least 20 inches long. Blood drops where Frank had shot the creature. And the valve assembly, carefully placed on the ground exactly where the creature had left it. I picked it up, examining it. It removed this to access the leak. Look, there's oil residue on the threads. It was trying to stop the flow. Voss took the valve assembly, his expression unreadable. Interesting. Interesting? That thing, whatever it was trying to prevent environmental damage. That's not sabotage. That's interference. Voss cut me off. These entities have been interfering with Arctis operations for 32 years. Destroying equipment. Disrupting drilling. Attacking workers. Attacking? It didn't attack me. It showed me the problem. You were lucky. Others haven't been. Voss gestured to his team. We've documented 17 incidents of violence against Arctis personnel since 1974. 3 fatalities. Dozens of injuries. Millions in damaged equipment. I stared at him. 1974? You're telling me these things have been here for over 30 years and nobody knows about it? Correct. And that's how it stays. Why? If there's an unknown species out here, that's the discovery of the century. Scientists should be studying them, not— I gestured at the armed mercenaries. Not hunting them. Voss's expression hardened. Mr. Hayes, Arctis Energy has invested over $4 billion in Alaskan operations. We employ 12,000 people. We provide 30% of domestic oil production on the West Coast. That infrastructure, that investment, that economic impact, it all depends on operational continuity. And these creatures threaten that. These creatures, Voss said coldly, represent an existential threat to this company. If their existence became public knowledge, environmental groups would shut down every drilling operation in this region. Federal protections would be enacted. Billions in infrastructure would become worthless overnight. The realization hit me like a physical blow. So you kill them. We protect company assets. They're intelligent beings. They're obstacles. Voss stepped closer, his voice dropping. And you need to understand something very clearly, Mr. Hayes. You signed a comprehensive NDA when you joined this project. That NDA includes provisions for classified encounters. What you saw last night falls under those provisions. You will not discuss it. You will not report it. You will forget it ever happened. And if I don't... Voss smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Then you become a liability. And we're very good at handling liabilities. Voss's team spent the next 2 days setting up a perimeter around the worksite. Motion sensors, trip wires, automated cameras with thermal imaging. They were preparing for a hunt. The rest of the crew knew something was wrong, but nobody asked questions. The presence of armed mercenaries had that effect. I couldn't stop thinking about the creature, the intelligence in its eyes, the way it had tried to show me the leak, to communicate, the blood on the snow where Frank had shot it. On the third night, I was in the mess hall when one of Voss's men, the younger one I'd spoken to before, sat down across from me. "You're Hayes," he said. "Yeah." "I'm Garrett." He glanced around, making sure we were alone. "I need to tell you something. But if I do, you can't repeat it. Not to Voss. Not to anyone. Why would you risk telling me anything? Because I'm done with this job. I'm done with what we do out here." He leaned forward. "Do you know what a cleanup operation is in Arctis terminology?" "No." "It means extermination. Total extermination. Voss isn't here to scare them off or relocate them. He's here to kill every single one of them within a 50-mile radius." My blood ran cold. "How many are there?" "Near this site? We've tracked maybe 15 to 20 individuals. A family group, probably. Includes juveniles." "Children," I said. "You're talking about killing children." Garrett's jaw tightened. "I'm talking about following orders. Orders I don't agree with anymore." "How long has this been going on?" "I've been with Arctis Security for 6 years. In that time, we've conducted 11 cleanup operations across Alaska and northern Canada, each one targeting these creatures near drilling sites." He paused. "We've killed over 60 of them." I felt sick. Why? Why not just study them? Document them? They're not attacking, they're trying to protect their territory. Doesn't matter. Arctis's position is clear. They're competition for resources. They disrupt operations. They're an economic threat that needs to be eliminated. That's genocide. That's business. Garrett stood. "I'm leaving after this operation. Going somewhere Voss can't find me. But before I go, I wanted someone to know the truth. These things, they're not monsters. They're people. And we're slaughtering them." He walked away, leaving me alone with the weight of what I'd just learned. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bunk, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. 60 creatures killed. 15 to 20 more targeted for extermination here. An entire species being systematically destroyed because they were economically inconvenient. And I was part of it. By morning, I'd made my decision. I found Frank in the equipment yard. "I need to talk to you." He looked tired, older than I'd ever seen him. "If this is about the security team, it's about what they're planning to do." Garrett told me. "The cleanup operation." Frank's expression went flat. "Garrett talks too much. They're going to kill all of them. The whole family group, including the young ones." "I know. And you're okay with this?" Frank was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I've been working for Arctis for 18 years, Connor. I've seen 4 of these operations. I've watched good men die because these creatures destroyed safety equipment or damaged drilling rigs. I've seen million-dollar machinery reduced to scrap because they don't want us here. They're protecting their home. And we're protecting our livelihoods. Frank's voice rose. You think I like this? You think I enjoy what's happening? But this is the world we live in. Arctis provides jobs, provides energy, provides economic stability. And if these things threaten that, they have to go. They're intelligent beings. So are we. And we're better armed. Frank turned away. Go back to work, Connor. Do your job. Collect your paycheck. And don't make this harder than it has to be. I watched him walk away and knew I couldn't let this happen. That night, I broke every rule. I waited until 200 hours, when most of the camp was asleep. I disabled the motion sensor on the north perimeter. Simple wire cut, easily blamed on equipment failure. Then I grabbed a flashlight, a first aid kit, and the location data Garrett had mentioned during our conversation. Voss's team had mapped the creature's territory. A valley system about 6 miles northeast, sheltered by ridge lines and dense with old-growth timber. I hiked through the darkness, following GPS coordinates on my phone, my heart pounding with equal parts fear and determination. If I was caught, Voss would kill me. I was certain of that. But if I did nothing, an entire family would be slaughtered. The choice was clear. After 2 hours of hiking, I found signs, massive footprints in the snow, broken branches at heights no human could reach. I was close. I stopped at the edge of a clearing and called out, my voice shaking. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to warn you. Silence. Just wind through the pines. Please, I said. I know you can understand. I know you're intelligent. And I know there are people coming to kill you. All of you. Movement in the trees. Shadows shifting. Then the creature from before emerged from the darkness. The one Frank had shot. Its shoulder was wrapped in what looked like moss and plant material, a crude bandage. It stared at me, wary. I held up my hands. I'm sorry. I'm sorry my friend shot you. I'm sorry for everything we've done. But you need to leave this area. Before they come. The creature tilted its head, studying me. I pulled out my phone, showing it the map, the marked territory, the camp location. These men, I gestured back toward the camp. They're coming to kill you. To kill your family. You have to run. You have to. A sound behind me. The click of a rifle's safety being released. Step away from it, Hayes. I turned slowly. Voss stood 20 feet away, rifle aimed at the creature. Behind him, 3 more mercenaries, all armed. I can't let you do this, I said. You don't have a choice. Voss's finger moved to the trigger. I stepped between him and the creature. Move, Hayes. No. You're protecting an animal that's destroyed millions in company property. I'm protecting a person, I said. A person who was trying to fix a leak that would have contaminated this entire watershed. A person who's intelligent and aware and deserves to live. Voss's expression didn't change. Last chance. Move, or we shoot through you. Behind me, I heard the creature move. But it didn't run. It stepped forward, placing one massive hand on my shoulder. In that moment, I understood. It was protecting me, just as I was protecting it. Shoot us both then, I said. But I'm not moving. For a long moment, no one moved. The forest was silent except for the wind. Then Voss lowered his rifle slightly. You're making a mistake, Hayes. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. Voss keyed his radio. All teams, hold position. We have a complication. Voss kept his rifle trained on us, but his expression had shifted. Not to compassion, there was none of that in his eyes, but to calculation. You realize what you've done, Hayes, he said quietly. You've compromised a classified operation. You've interfered with corporate security protocols. And you've made yourself a witness to activities that Arctis Energy cannot allow to become public. So what now? I asked. You kill me and blame it on the creature? That would be the simplest solution. The creature's hand tightened on my shoulder, not threateningly, but protectively. I could feel the tension in its body, coiled and ready to move. One of the other mercenaries spoke up. Voss, we've got thermal signatures moving in from the east. Multiple contacts. Large. Voss's jaw tightened. How many? At least 12. Maybe more. They're surrounding our position. I felt the creature's hand release my shoulder. It made a sound, low, resonant, carrying through the forest like a drumbeat. A call. And it was answered. From the darkness around us, shapes emerged. Massive, bipedal figures moving between the trees. Some as large as the one beside me. Others smaller, juveniles, maybe 7 or 8 feet tall. One carried what looked like an infant, cradled against its chest. A family. An entire clan. They formed a loose circle around us, not aggressive, but present. Watching. Waiting. Jesus Christ, one of the mercenaries breathed. There's got to be 20 of them. Voss's calculation was visible on his face. 4 armed men against 20 creatures that could bend steel pipe with their bare hands. In the darkness. In their territory. The odds weren't in his favor, and he knew it. Lower your weapons, Voss ordered quietly. Sir. I said lower them. Slowly. The mercenaries complied, pointing their rifles at the ground. The tension in the clearing was suffocating. The creature beside me, the one I'd tried to warn, stepped forward. It looked at Voss for a long moment, then made a deliberate gesture, pointing at the mercenaries, then at the direction of the camp, then a sweeping motion that clearly meant go. Leave. Voss understood. We're going to back away. Slowly. Nobody makes sudden movements. What about Hayes? One of the mercenaries asked. He stays. For now. They retreated step by step, weapons down, moving back toward the camp. The creatures watched but didn't follow. Within minutes, they disappeared into the darkness. I was alone with the clan. The creature that had protected me gestured for me to follow. The clan parted, forming a path deeper into the forest. I followed, my legs shaking, adrenaline still flooding my system. We walked for maybe 20 minutes, climbing a ridgeline until we reached a sheltered valley. And there, hidden beneath rocky overhangs and dense forest canopy, I saw their home. Structures. Not caves, not simple shelters, deliberate constructions. Frameworks of branches and logs, covered with bark and moss, insulated with layers of dried grass and leaves. Smoke holes in the roofs. Storage areas for food, dried meat, roots, berries carefully preserved. This wasn't a camp. This was a village. The creature led me to the largest structure and gestured inside. I ducked through the entrance, and the warmth hit me immediately. A small fire burned in a central pit, the smoke venting through a hole in the roof. And on the walls, I saw something that made my breath catch. Drawings. Painted in ochre and charcoal. Images of these creatures living alongside humans, trading, sharing food, coexisting. And then darker images. Men with guns. Machines tearing up the earth. Creatures lying dead, their bodies burned. Children separated from parents. A history. Their history. The creature sat down across the fire from me and began to speak. Not in English. The sounds were too complex, too layered. But it used gestures, pointing at the drawings, and slowly, I began to understand. They had lived here for generations. Hundreds of years, maybe longer. They'd known the native peoples of this region, traded with them, coexisted peacefully. When the first Europeans arrived, they'd retreated deeper into the wilderness, avoiding contact. Then the oil companies came. The creature pointed to an image of machines, drilling rigs, bulldozers. Then to images of the forest burning, rivers turning black. It placed a hand over its chest and made a sound of pain. Poison. The oil operations were poisoning their land, their water, their food sources. They tried to stop it the only way they knew how, dismantling equipment, blocking access roads, trying to make the humans understand that this land couldn't sustain the damage. And the humans had responded with violence. The creature pointed to more drawings. Bodies. So many bodies. Creatures shot, burned, poisoned. The population dwindling. Families destroyed. How many of you are left? I asked quietly. It held up both hands, fingers spread. 10. Then again. 20. Then it hesitated, dropped one hand. 30, maybe. In this entire region. 30 individuals. All that remained of a population that had once thrived across this wilderness. I'm so sorry, I said, tears burning my eyes. I'm so sorry for what we've done. The creature reached out and placed a hand on my head, gently, the gesture unmistakably one of understanding. Of forgiveness, even. It stood and moved to a corner of the structure, returning with something wrapped in hide. It unwrapped it carefully, revealing a collection of objects. Human objects. A rusted pocket watch. A hunting knife. A child's toy truck. A wedding ring. Dog tags from the military. These belong to people who came here, I said, understanding. People who died. The creature nodded. It pointed to one set of dog tags, then made a gesture, falling, clutching its chest. He died here. In your territory. Another nod. The creature mimed carrying something, then digging, then placing something in the ground with reverence. You buried him, I breathed. You found him and gave him a burial. The creature gestured to all the objects, then to itself, then made the burial gesture again. All of them. Everyone who had died in this wilderness. Hunters who got lost, workers who had accidents, people who disappeared. The creatures had found them and buried them with respect. They weren't monsters. They weren't even animals. They were the most human beings I'd ever encountered. I stayed with them for 3 hours. During that time, I used my phone to document everything. Photographs of the structures. Video of the creatures interacting with each other, caring for young, sharing food, communicating with complex vocalizations and gestures. I recorded the drawings on the walls. The timeline of violence. The history that Arctis energy had spent 30 years trying to erase. One of the younger creatures, maybe a teenager in human terms, approached me cautiously. It held out something, a small carved figure, made from wood. A crude but recognizable depiction of a human and a creature standing together. A gift. A symbol of what could have been. I took it carefully, fighting back tears. Thank you. As dawn approached, the creature that had protected me led me back toward the camp. We stopped at the edge of the cleared forest, where the pipeline construction zone began. It pointed at the pipeline, then at the ground, then made a spreading gesture. Contamination, destruction. I know, I said. I know what we're doing to your home. And I'm going to try to stop it. I don't know if I can, but I'm going to try. The creature studied me for a long moment. Then it did something I'll never forget. It knelt down, bringing itself to eye level with me, and placed both hands on my shoulders. It made a sound, not words, but something that felt like a blessing, a prayer, a plea. Then it stood and disappeared into the forest. I walked back to camp as the sun rose, my mind made up about what I had to do. Frank was waiting for me at the camp entrance, his face haggard. Where the hell have you been? Voss has been tearing the place apart looking for you. I was with them. The creatures. Learning their story. Connor, you need to listen to me very carefully. No, Frank. You need to listen to me. I pulled out my phone. I have documentation. Photographs, videos, recordings of their village, their history. Evidence of everything Arctis has done to them over the past 30 years. Frank's face went pale. You can't. I'm going to send this to every environmental organization, every news outlet, every regulatory agency I can find. I'm going to expose what Arctis has been doing. They'll kill you, Connor. They will literally kill you to keep this quiet. Maybe. But at least those creatures will have a chance. Frank grabbed my arm. You think this is the first time someone's tried to expose this? 3 years ago, a geologist named Martin Weiss found evidence of their existence. He was going to publish. His car went off a cliff outside Anchorage before he could. 5 years before that, a wildlife photographer named David Chen got video footage. He disappeared in the wilderness. They never found his body. So what? I should just let it happen. Let Voss and his team slaughter them. I'm saying you need to be smart about this. If you go public directly, you'll be dead before the story breaks. I stared at him. What are you suggesting? Frank looked around, making sure we were alone. I know someone. A journalist, investigative type, who specializes in corporate corruption. He's protected, has multiple dead man switches in place. If you give the evidence to him, it has a chance of actually seeing the light of day. Why are you helping me? You work for Arctis. I worked for Arctis, Frank corrected quietly. Past tense. I'm done. I've watched too many of them die. I've been complicit in too much. If you're going to burn this company down, I'm going to help you do it right. Before I could respond, Voss appeared from behind one of the housing units, flanked by 2 mercenaries. Mr. Hayes. Mr. Deacon. We need to talk. Voss led us to the communications building and shut the door. I'm going to make this very simple. Mr. Hayes, you have information that Arctis Energy cannot allow to become public. You have 2 options. I'm listening. Option 1. You delete everything on your phone right now. You sign an expanded NDA with a $5 million penalty clause. You accept a payment of $200,000 for your silence. You leave Alaska today and never speak of this again. And option 2? There is no option 2. Option 1 is the only option that ends with you alive. I looked at Frank. He gave me the slightest nod. Trust me. I want to see the payment in writing, I said. And I want the NDA reviewed by my attorney before I sign anything. Voss smiled coldly. I'm afraid we need your decision immediately. Then here's my decision. I want to speak to someone from Arctis Corporate. Not you. Not security. An actual executive who can authorize this kind of payout. Voss's expression hardened. That's not how this works. Then we have a problem. Because I'm not deleting anything without legal protection. You want my silence. I want insurance that you won't kill me the moment I'm no longer useful. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then Frank spoke up. He's right, Voss. If he disappears, people will ask questions. He's been here 6 weeks. He has family, friends who know where he is. Making him vanish creates more problems than it solves. Voss considered this. Fine. I'll arrange a call with regional management. But the phone stays here, and you don't leave this building until we have an agreement. Deal. Voss left, locking the door behind him. Frank immediately moved to the window, checking sight lines. We've got maybe 2 hours before they realize we're playing them. There's a maintenance tunnel that connects this building to the equipment yard. We can use it to get out without being seen. Get out to where? We're 140 miles from the nearest town. There's an emergency cache 20 miles south. Snowmobiles, supplies, satellite phone. It's for evacuation scenarios, but Voss doesn't know about it. Company installed it before his team took over security. Frank, if we run. We're not running. We're getting you somewhere safe so you can transmit that data before they can stop you. Frank pulled out a piece of paper with a name and number. This is the journalist I mentioned. Marcus Rivera, based in Anchorage. You get to that cache, you call him, you send him everything. Then you disappear until the story breaks. What about you? I'll stay here, keep up appearances. Tell them you overpowered me or something. I'm too useful to kill, and I've got too much dirt on Arctis for them to risk it. He gripped my shoulder. But you need to go now, Connor. Before Voss gets suspicious. The maintenance tunnel was cramped, dark, and claustrophobic. A concrete tube barely 3 feet in diameter, running underground from the communications building to the equipment storage area. Frank had given me a flashlight and a map marked with the cache location. I crawled through that tunnel for what felt like hours but was probably 20 minutes, my phone pressed against my chest, protected by layers of clothing. I emerged in the equipment yard, behind a stack of pipeline sections. It was 0820 hours. The crew would be at breakfast. I had maybe 15 minutes before someone noticed I was missing. I found a snowmobile with a full tank, a miracle, and keyed the ignition. The engine roared to life, and I didn't waste time. I gunned it south, away from the camp, into the wilderness. Behind me, I heard shouting. Then gunfire, warning shots cracking through the air. I pushed the snowmobile faster. The next 3 hours were a blur of white landscape, freezing wind, and pure terror. I followed the GPS coordinates Frank had given me, praying they were accurate, praying Voss hadn't somehow anticipated this. At 1,147 hours, I found it, a concealed cache buried in a rocky outcropping. Inside were 2 more snowmobiles, fuel, food supplies, cold weather gear, and, most importantly, a satellite phone. I powered it up with shaking hands and dialed the number Frank had given me. It rang 4 times. Then, Rivera. Mr. Rivera, my name is Connor Hayes. I'm an oil worker in northern Alaska, and I have evidence of a massive corporate cover-up involving the systematic extermination of an indigenous species. I need your help. There was a pause. What kind of evidence? Photographs, videos, documentation of habitats, proof of intelligence, and a 30-year pattern of violence by Arctis Energy Corporation to conceal their existence. How soon can you transmit? Right now. But I'm being hunted. If I don't get this data out, send everything to this email address. I'll acknowledge receipt immediately. Once I have it, you go dark. No contact, no trails. Understand? Yes. He gave me the email address, and I spent the next 20 minutes uploading everything from my phone, every photo, every video, every piece of evidence I'd gathered. At 1,219 hours, I received confirmation, data received. Stay alive, Mr. Hayes. I'll take it from here. I powered down the phone and buried it in the snow. Then I took one of the snowmobiles and headed east, toward the Canadian border, away from Arctis, away from Voss, away from everything. The story broke 3 days later. Marcus Rivera's article appeared simultaneously in the Anchorage Daily News, the Seattle Times, and was picked up nationally by the Associated Press. The headline, Corporate Genocide, Oil Company's Secret War Against Alaskan Sasquatch Population. The evidence was irrefutable. The photographs, the videos, the documentation I'd provided, corroborated by Frank's insider testimony. He'd come forward hours after the story broke, providing his own records of the cleanup operations. Within 48 hours, federal investigators had descended on Arctis Energy's headquarters. The FBI opened a criminal investigation. Environmental Protection Agency suspended all drilling permits. The Department of the Interior declared the region a protected zone pending further study. Arctis Energy's stock price collapsed. The CEO resigned. Criminal charges were filed against 12 corporate executives and security personnel. Voss disappeared. Some say he fled to South America. Others think Arctis silenced him to prevent testimony. I don't know, and I don't care. I watched all of this unfold from a cabin in rural Saskatchewan, using a laptop connected through multiple VPN layers. Frank had been right. Once the story was public, I became more valuable alive than dead. A martyr would only strengthen the case against Arctis. 6 months later, the federal government officially acknowledged the existence of what they termed North American relict hominids. A team of biologists, anthropologists, and conservationists was assembled to study and protect the remaining population. The estimate was devastating. Fewer than 80 individuals remained across Alaska, British Columbia, and the Yukon. Decades of persecution had brought them to the edge of extinction. But they were still here. Still surviving. It took 2 years before I felt safe enough to return to Alaska. By then, the Arctis prosecution was complete. 18 people convicted on charges ranging from conspiracy to commit murder to environmental terrorism. The company itself had been dissolved, its assets seized and sold to pay restitution. The territory where I'd worked, where I'd met the clan, had been designated as the Northern Hominid Preservation Zone. No drilling. No development. Protected forever. I hired a bush pilot to fly me to the edge of the zone in late summer. I hiked for 3 days to reach the valley where I'd first seen their village. It was still there. The structures. The painted history on the walls. But empty now. The clan had moved deeper into the protected territory, away from any remaining human presence. I didn't blame them. But as I stood in that clearing, I saw something that made my heart stop. A figure. Watching from the tree line. The creature that had protected me. I recognized the scar on its shoulder where Frank had shot it. We stared at each other across the distance. Then it raised one hand, a wave, unmistakably human in gesture. I raised mine in return. It stood there for a moment longer, then turned and disappeared into the forest. I never saw it again. I'm 51 years old now. It's been 17 years since that winter in Alaska. I never went back to the oil fields. Couldn't stomach it anymore, knowing what I know. What we do to the places we drill. What we're willing to destroy for profit. I work with Marcus Rivera now, investigating corporate environmental crimes. We've exposed illegal logging operations in the Amazon. Illegal fishing in protected marine zones. Mining companies poisoning water supplies in developing nations. It's not glamorous work. The pay is terrible. And the corporations we expose usually survive, restructure, and continue under new names. But sometimes, we save something worth saving. Frank retired to Montana. We talk once a month. He lives with the ghosts of what he was part of, same as me. But he sleeps better now, knowing he helped stop it. Garrett, the mercenary who first told me the truth, disappeared. I like to think he found peace somewhere far from the killing. The creatures, the ones we almost exterminated for the crime of existing in the wrong place, they're still out there. The population has stabilized at around 90 individuals. Not thriving, but surviving. Scientists have learned they have complex language. Tool use. Cultural transmission of knowledge. They mourn their dead. They create art. They tell stories. They're people. People we nearly erased from existence because they were inconvenient to our bottom line. I think about that a lot. About how close we came. About how many we'd already killed before I stumbled onto that site and made a choice that felt impossibly simple in the moment. Protect the person in front of you, even if it costs you everything. I keep the wooden carving on my desk, the one the young creature gave me. The human and the creature standing together. It reminds me what's possible when we choose to see the personhood in those who are different from us. When we value life over profit. When we have the courage to stand between the weapon and the target and say, no more. The oil industry still operates in Alaska. They're more careful now, more aware that people are watching. But the fundamental dynamic hasn't changed. Humans extracting resources from land that doesn't belong to us, land that's home to others. The difference is that now, at least in one protected zone, those others have a fighting chance. That's not enough. It's nowhere near enough. But it's something. And sometimes, in this brutal world we've created, something is all we get. My name is Connor Hayes. Former roughneck. Former pipeline welder. Former complicit participant in an industry that values oil more than life. And the man who looked at a creature society wanted dead and saw a person worth protecting. They tried to make me forget what I saw. Tried to bribe me, threaten me, erase me. But I remember. I remember the intelligence in those eyes. The gentleness of that hand on my shoulder. The village they'd built. The history they'd painted. The bodies they'd buried with honor. I remember that they tried to fix the leak we'd caused, even though we'd given them every reason to let us poison ourselves. That's who they are. And the question that keeps me awake at night, is who are we? Are we the species that sees intelligence and responds with genocide? That meets compassion with violence? That values quarterly profits over the survival of entire peoples? Or can we be better? Can we be the species that puts down the weapon? That chooses protection over profit? That stands in front of the target and says, "This life matters more than my career, my comfort, my convenience." I made that choice once, in a frozen wilderness, with a rifle pointed at my back. It cost me my career. Nearly cost me my life. Changed everything about who I am and how I see the world. But I'd make it again. Every single time. Because in the end, the only thing that separates us from the monsters is the choice we make when confronted with those who are different, vulnerable, and at our mercy. Do we destroy them? Or do we protect them? I chose protection. And I pray, to whatever forces govern this brutal, beautiful world, that more people will make the same choice before it's too late. Before there's nothing left to protect.